Call it. Heads. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm. Hello, and welcome to Storytime with Isto. I'm Isto, and I am so excited to have you here to join me today. I am so proud to introduce a new series that I am calling Tarot Tales. Here's what that means. Every week, I will be here Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern to tell a story. That story will be a fairy tale, likely one I've never heard of, and definitely one you've never heard of, based on a tarot card that I drew randomly the week before. Each week, when I pick a story, I'm going to scour the internet and a whole bunch of cocktail books to find a thematically paired cocktail and mocktail for those of you that would like to enjoy a drink with me during the show. That's basically the concept. Story, tarot card, and cocktail or mocktail. There's also a scavenger hunt that is woven throughout this entire episodic series. But that's not the main point. It is fun, though, so keep your eyes peeled for clues. The biggest thing that I was hoping to do with this is reconnect to a sense of community that I have missed so very much through live events and things to do and a nice cocktail and a beautiful moment. And we don't have a lot of access to those. So I spent some time thinking about how we might do them now. And this is my attempt to do that and to also explore something that I don't know a lot about, which I should have mentioned to begin with, which is that I know nothing about the tarot, and I really don't know anything about fairy tales either. I have always been fascinated by them ever since I was a kid, and I thought that reading a tarot deck would send me straight to hell. And I've always really wanted an excuse to dive into fairy tales and like learn a whole bunch about them, and I already have this week, and I'm so excited to learn more as this entire series goes on. But mostly, I'm really intrigued by this idea of spirituality and symbolism, morality and hidden meaning that exists in both of these bodies of work. And I also just love a drink that those of you that are watching probably already know. So I thought I would enjoy that with you all. So I hope that you will join me on this journey week to week as I learn out loud live. And I hope some of you want to learn with me. It's a crazy time. Let's get into tarot together. I should also say that some of you may know a lot about this stuff. I have already called on a lot of folks' expertise in lighting, in stories, in makeup. But if you have any feedback, any thoughts for me about how to build this community or to make this something that's more beautiful than I already feel it is, please let me know. Underneath this video, in the description, there's a link to a form where you can provide feedback or story suggestions. Also in the description down there is a link to the text if you would like to follow along week to week. Specifically, you'll find the text for today along with the source material linked, as well as a couple of different ways to keep in touch if you would like to get access to those recipes, or if you just want to see some behind the scenes stuff. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. Anyway, let's change into tonight's entertainment. So this week, I did not draw, but I chose the Fool. Specifically the Fool, because I learned that it stands for Upright, growth, play, potential, new beginnings, freedom, innocence, adventure. And reversed, I learned that it means chaos, risk, absence, naivete, uncertainty, distraction. And I felt like both of them were super appropriate for starting a brand new art project. So here we are. The cocktails that I paired with them are for all of my sober friends, the Apple Ring Fizz, which is thematically appropriate for the story that we're telling today. And also, I hope delicious, let me know. But I am drinking the Death in the Afternoon, which is a cocktail that was invented by Ernest Hemingway. Invented is a loose word because it's absinthe and champagne. But I really liked it for beginning this project because absinthe is also called the Green Fairy, which is appropriate. And because it has champagne in it, which is ceremonial for new beginnings. So I thought that would be appropriate. So for those of you that are drinking along at home with me, I have a little drinking game for us to play. Every time that you hear the word bag, B-A-G, bag, as I go through this story, we drink, okay? I'll cue you for the first one, but after that, you're on your own, so help keep each other accountable. Please throw it in the chat. Oh, I forgot to mention. So the cool thing about YouTube Live is that the chat that exists over here on the side is permanent for this moment. So whatever you put in there or have already put in there is going to exist alongside this video, which I think is beautiful because though you may be able to watch this again, you will never be able to participate with the actual video live like you are tonight. So I don't know, get drunk with me. All right. So let's get started. I've printed off the story in my tome that will just gradually grow as the weeks go forward. And let us start with chapter 1, The Garden of Paradise by Hanschristianandersen. There once lived a prince who had a larger and more beautiful collection of books than anyone else in the world. He could read information respecting every people of every land, but where the Garden of Eden lay was not mentioned in any of his books. This made the prince very sad, for it was paradise that interested him the most. Oh, why did Eve pluck the apple? And why did Adam eat the forbidden fruit? If I had been Adam, man would never have fallen, and sin would not have conquered the world. Now, at 17, he felt no different, and thoughts about the Garden of Eden still filled his mind. His favorite diversion was to take solitary walks in the wood. One day, when he had ventured farther than usual, a storm overtook him. The clouds gathered, and the rain poured down as if the sky had been a waterspout, and it was as dark as the bottom of a well at midnight. Soon, he lost his way. The poor prince was wet to the skin. Exhausted, he climbed up the side of a cliff, pressing his body against the water-drenched moss. He began to feel quite faint when he heard a strange rustling noise and saw in front of him a large cave lit up within. Inside the cave was a great fire. A woman, large and strong, sat by. She put another log on the fire, and she turned and called the prince. "Come in! Sit down by the fire and dry your clothes." It's drafty in here, the prince said. He was shivering as he sat down on the floor near the fire. "It's gonna be a lot draftier when my sons come home," said the woman. "You are in the cave of winds. The 4 winds of the world are my sons. Do you understand?" "Where are your sons?" asked the prince. "It's difficult to answer stupid questions," said the woman. "My sons are playing at shuttlecock with the clouds up yonder." So, vocab lesson. I had to look up what shuttlecock is. It's not nearly as fun as it sounds. It's just that little ball that you throw around, or I guess bat around in badminton. Anyway, vocab. "A shuttlecock with the clouds up yonder," and she pointed upwards. "I see," nodded the prince. "You know, you speak more roughly than the women I'm used to talking to."
"Well, they're not mothers of sons like mine," the woman grinned. "I have to be tough to keep my sons in tow. See those 4 leather bags hanging on the wall? I'm stronger than they are, and if they don't behave, then I pick any one of them up and put him in a bag. And there he can stay until I let him out again. Here comes one of them now."
It was the north wind. And just a quick aside here, folks. I got so very excited that the winds were going to be these different colored, like little cloud poofs. But they ended up looking more like those bath scrubbers. So I just want to acknowledge that. I want to be real in the moment with you about it. But they are, in fact, clouds for the sake of this performance. Okay? So...
"How has such a little weakling as you found your way to the cave of the winds?" "He is my guest," said the old woman. "And if you're not satisfied with that explanation, I'll put you in a bag. Do you understand me?"
That quieted the north wind down. "I have just come from the Arctic Ocean," he began. "I have been visiting the Barents Sea with Russian whalers. Fulmars flew around my legs. They're strange birds. They flap their wings once or twice and then hold them out straight, gliding along at a good speed."
"Don't be so long-winded,"
interrupted his mother.
"What was it like in the Barents Sea?"
"Oh, it was wonderful. Flat as a dance floor. The snow was melting and the moss was green. Skeletons of walrus and polar bears lay among the sharp bones. They looked like the limbs of giants. Oh, but there is my brother, the west wind."
"Where are you coming from?"
asked his mother. From the primeval forest," he answered, "where the thorny liana makes a fence from one tree to the next." Okay, so liana was another word I had to look up, which, first of all, I think is just such a beautiful word. And I thought it was so cool what I learned about it. So it's like these thick, knotty pictures or thick, knotty vines that like hang down and like cause intrusions in the rainforest. If you're on the Instagram, you can see this is one of the pictures I included right after the primeval forest definition. They look so, so cool. So I encourage you to check it out. Anyway. "Where the thorny liana makes a fence from one tree to the next, and human beings seem not to be wanted. I have turned somersaults on the savannah, stroked wild horses, and shaken coconuts from the trees. I have a couple of stories to tell, but it's best not to tell everything one knows. You know that well enough, old lady." And with that, he kissed his mother so hard she nearly fell over backwards. The south wind arrived.
"It's cold in here,"
he said, and threw more wood on the fire.
"You can tell that the north wind came home before me." "It's so hot in here you can fry polar bears," grumbled the north wind. "You're a polar bear yourself. Do you want to be put in a bag?" asked the old woman, and sounded as if she meant it. "Sit down and tell us about the places you have been." "In Africa, mother," began the south wind, crestfallen. "I have visited the desert. Its yellow sand looked like the ocean's floor. There I met a caravan. The sun burned down upon them from above, and the hot sand fried them from below. I rolled myself in the loose sand and whirled it into burning columns over their head. I buried them all in a pyramid of sand. Next time I come, I shall blow it away and let their bones be bleached by the sun." "So, you have done nothing but evil," scolded his mother. "Into the bag you go!" And before he was aware, she had seized the south wind around the body and popped him into one of the leather sacks. But the south wind couldn't keep still and moved around again and again all over the floor till his mother sat down and kept the bag still. "Oh, what lively sons you've got," said the prince. "They're plucky enough, but I can manage them," answered the mother. "Here comes my fourth son. Have you been to the Garden of Paradise?
No, that's where I fly tomorrow, replied the East Wind. Now I come from China. I have danced around the porcelain tower so swiftly that all the little bells rang.
You are out of control, laughed his mother. I'm glad you're visiting the paradise tomorrow. It always improves your manners. Remember to drink from the spring of wisdom and bring a bottle full of water back for your mother.
Oh, I certainly will, said the East Wind. Tell me, begged the prince, where lies the Garden of Eden? Ha ha ha! Laughed the East Wind. Would you like to come along tomorrow? No man has been there since Adam and Eve. I assume you know about them from the Bible? Well, when they were banished, the Garden of Eden sank down underground. The princess of the fairies lives there on the island of bliss. If you will climb on my back tomorrow, I shall take you there. So, gonna pause real quick again because I love this idea that was just introduced, that Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden on an island called Bliss. And somehow there was a fairy princess that existed there. This meshing of spiritual worlds is very confusing and raises a lot of questions that I hope you pick up on and that I will explicitly go into as we continue. All right. Soon they all fell asleep. It was still early in the morning when the prince awoke, but to his surprise, he found himself flying high up among the clouds. The east wind was carrying him. Oh, there are the Himalayas, said the east wind. Soon we shall be in the Garden of Eden. He pointed towards a radiantly blue light ahead of them. The mounds of stone in the mountain assumed a misty appearance, till at last they looked like white clouds in the moonlight. The air was fresh and balmy, like a breeze from the mountain, perfumed with flowers from a valley of roses. A river, clear as the air itself, sparkled at their feet. In its clear depths could be seen gold and silver fish sporting in the bright water, and purple eels emitting sparks of fire at every moment, while the broad leaves of the water lilies that floated on its surface flickered with all the colors of the rainbow. The east wind carried the prince in his arms across the river to the island of bliss and set him down among the flowers. There, the lion and the tiger, gentle and tame, were springing about like playful cats among the green bushes. The plumage of the wood pigeon glistened like pearls as it struck the lion's mane with its wings, while the antelope, usually so shy, stood near, nodding its head as if it wished to join in the frolic. Next came forth the princess of the fairies. Her clothes shined like the sun, and her face was as happy as a mother when she looks at her sleeping child. She was young and beautiful, and a train of lovely maidens followed in her tow, each wearing a bright star in her hair. She took the prince by the hand and led him towards her castle. The prince walked to a window and saw what appeared to be the tree of good and evil, with Adam and Eve standing by and the serpent near them. I thought they were banished from paradise, he said. The princess smiled and told him that time had engraved each event on a window pane in the form of a picture. But, unlike other pictures, all that it represented lived and moved. The leaves rustled, and the persons came and went as in a looking glass. All that had ever happened in the world lived and moved on these panes of glass. And this is my favorite line in the entire story. Such curious and wonderful works of art only time could create.
Come down into my little boat, bade the fairy. It rocks as though it were floating, but it never moves. All the countries of the world will glide before our eyes.
It was marvelous how the shore moved. There were the high Swiss Alps and the clouds and the dark pine forests. New Holland, the fifth continent of the world, which I had to look up because I didn't know what that meant. But apparently New Holland is what they used to refer to Australia as. Who knew? New Holland, the fifth continent of the world, glided by, showing its blue mountains far away. In their place rose the great pyramids of Egypt, the Indus desert, the Sphinx, the ancient ruins of the temples, while the northern lights flashed out over the extinguished volcanoes of the north in fireworks that none could imitate. The prince was at the height of happiness. And yet he saw hundreds of other wonderful things, more beautiful than could be described here. Ah, could I stay here forever? He asked.
That depends, answered the fairy. If you do not let that which is forbidden tempt you, as Adam did, then you can live here forever. Every evening I shall leave you, and as I go, I shall cry out to you to follow me. I shall wave my hand to beckon you to come, but do not obey me. Every step you take toward me will make it more difficult for you to turn back. If you follow me, you will enter the hall where the tree of knowledge grows. Underneath its sweet-smelling branches I sleep. As you bend over me, I shall smile. But if you kiss my mouth, then the Garden of Paradise would sink into the earth, and to you it would be lost. A keen wind from the desert would howl around you, cold rain fall on your head, and sorrow and woe be your future lot. Examine your heart, and if there is courage enough in it, then stay. But if you find doubt and weakness there, then ask the east wind to take you with him. He is leaving today.
I will stay, said the prince. The east wind kissed him on the forehead and said, Oh, be strong. I shall see you again. Farewell. Farewell. And so for this very next line, this is how I imagine it takes place. All right. So the fairy creeps up right behind the prince here and whispers in his ear as if it's just like right here. And it says, the beautiful east wind flies away. And then it says, now our dance begins. whispered the fairy. When it is over and the sun begins to set, I shall cry out, begging you to follow me. But do not do it! Every night for 100 years this will happen, but each time you refuse, it makes it easier for you to refuse the next time, until at last it will give you no pain. This is the first night. I have warned you. The fairy led him into a chamber made of white, transparent lilies. The fairy's maidens handed the prince a cup of wine. He drank it and felt even more intensely happy than he had before. The back wall of the castle disappeared, where he looked into the great hall and saw the tree of knowledge growing. Its beauty blinded him. The fairy waved to him, beckoned to him, and cried lovingly, Follow me, follow me. He forgot all of his promises and ran toward her on that first evening. I must, he breathed. It is no sin to follow beauty and happiness. I just want to see where she sleeps. I shall not kiss her. Nothing is lost unless I do that, and I will not. I'm strong. I have a firm will. The fairy threw off her beautiful robes and disappeared in among the branches. I have not sinned yet, muttered the prince, and I shall not do it. But he pulled the branches apart to look, and there she lay sleeping, as beautiful as only the fairy in the Garden of Eden could be. She smiled in her sleep, and he bent over her and saw a tear hanging from her long eyelashes. Are you crying because of me? He whispered. Do not cry, fairest, most beautiful woman. Let everlasting night come. The riches of one moment like this are enough for me. He stooped and kissed the tears from her eyes and touched her lips with his. A clap of thunder, loud and awful, resounded through the trembling air. The fairy vanished, and the Garden of Eden sank deep, deep down into the earth. The sharp lashes of the wind whipped his face, and the cold rain drenched him. Then he awoke. "What have I done?" he said. He rose. He was in the forest near the Cave of Winds. Their mother was sitting on a tree stump. She looked at him with anger and disgust.
"The very first evening,"
she scolded.
"I thought so. If you were my boy, I would put you in a bag."
"And there he will have to go at last," said the voice of a strong old man with large black wings and a scythe in his hand, whose name was Death. "In a coffin I shall put him, but not now. I shall come when he least expects it, and put him in a black coffin. I shall carry him on my head to the stars, and if he has learned his lesson, to be good and kind, then he shall live there forever. But if his heart and thoughts are filled with sin, then he shall sink in his coffin deeper into the earth than the Garden of Eden sank. Only once every 1,000 years shall I come to fetch him, to find out whether he must be sent deeper into the earth or be taken to the bright and sparkling star." The end. And truly, it is the end. I cut this story a lot, but that is actually how this story ends. Isn't that incredible? So obviously there's a lot that we could dig into there. I hope that you all already have been, but I want to talk a little bit about it. However, I have been told I can be the teensiest bit long-winded. So I am going to time myself by giving myself a match for a segment I am now going to impromptu call Matchsto. So first of all, we obviously need to know the backstory of all of these wins, because that's super fun. Also, who is this incredible Oh no. I have more to say. Who is this incredible matriarch that existed, and what's her backstory? And then also, what's going on with time and this fairy? Is the fairy the devil? If not, what happens with fairies in the world that they live in? How is that happening? I have a million different questions about that. Do they go to heaven? Do they go to hell? Was the fairy there with Adam and Eve? Is she the snake? Is she Eve? Is she Adam? What's happening with any of those things? And also, we got to know more about Death, but I have a feeling he's going to show up in more stories. Okay, this is burning my fingers, and we're done. Excellent. Okay, so that's it. We are now coming to a close, and I've barely touched my cocktail. My throat's dry, so give me a second. Licorice. So I have this giant deck of tarot cards. It's a Tuesday night. And it's really hard to shuffle these, but I'm going to do my best here because I saw a tarot reader doing this earlier today. Boom, 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 like this. And she was much better than I was, but we're going to try it one more time this way. And I'm going to draw the card that is going to consume my week for the next week while I frantically search for a story and some cocktails for you all. And I'm going to do you all the courtesy of letting you see it first. I'm going to close my eyes, and we are going to go with this card. And we've got the Page of Pentacles. I love it. I have no idea what this means. If you do, and you have an idea for a story immediately, please save me several hours of searching and put a response in the form in the description. Otherwise, I'm going to dive into it, and I look forward to learning about this card over the next week with all of you. Oh my goodness. So that's it, folks. We're coming to a close, and I really want to end each of these episodes with two things. The first is a gratitude. My thanks this week go to all of the incredible people that gave me feedback prior to me launching this show. And most of all, just said, hey, Isto, start doing it. You're going to figure it out once you start doing it. And here we are. So I wrote down everyone's names, and I'm not going to pretend to recall them. Thank you to Amanda, Andrew, Angela, Anya, Bibi, Clue, Ellie, Emily, Hannah, Ingrid, Jess, John, Johnny, Kelsey, Layla, Lauren, Lyndon, Lucy, Macy, me, Parker, Reagan, Robert, and Stephen. Happy birthday. And of course, Michael, but more on him next week. And to all of you that helped me out, I burn you. The final thing that I want to end on is the affirmation that has gotten me through the last couple of months. I've been using this every morning for myself since I started thinking about this show, and I'd like to send you all out on it. So, may you be happy. May you be healthy. May you treat yourself with love and respect. May you continue to grow and find the strength to persevere through the painful parts of growth. May you find inspiration all around you, and may you find peace. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Until next week. Bye, y'all.